¿Qué ondas, primos?
Primas.
Y primes.
Welcome to my
Primos.
My primos.
My
Primo
podcast.
My name is Freddie.
My name is Kevin Garcia.
My name is Elia Maria Madrid.
This is Chikuma, whenever I can make it.
My Primos podcast discusses all things fandom and pop culture,
From comic books,
Movies?
To whatever obsession we have this week.
but with a Latine
Malatine.
perspective. Remember, we're all primos,
We're all primes.
We're all primos.
no matter what part of the world we're from.
Primos podcast.
Hello.
Hi.
Wait, where am I?
You are directly in the center.
Wait,
so
I don't
You're in
even
the center.
know.
you can look either way and it works. Right?
Let's see. Okay, there we go. I will
Yeah.
do this. Hello.
Yeah.
There we go.
You get it.
There we go. It's just funny if you would say like Freddie, but you're looking at Kevin, you know? Kevin instead of Freddie.
That would be
On
fucked
purpose.
up and
You
hilarious.
should just do it
I'd
on
be like,
purpose. Just be like, oh, I just can't remember, you know. These little people.
I'm a ditzy dame.
No, you're not a ditty dame. You're so big. You know, you're so out there. You're out there with the stars looking down on us.
A lot of
peasants.
people talk about my assets, and sometimes I feel minimal in comparison to them.
Depends how big the assets are.
It's like Dolly said.
Times.
I may be.
Dolly.
It's like Dolly said. I'm also a great pair of legs.
¿Qué
Bring us home,
ondas,
Freddie.
primos y primas and primes? Of course, it has to be you. You have to step on it.
Well,
You
look,
have to
Elliot
step on-
wasn't
Elliot's
here.
gone.
Someone had to say something.
I guess. Fine. For the spirit of Elia. Here we go. ¿Qué ondas, primos, primas, and primes? And welcome back to my Primos podcast. With me tonight is my primo and yours, Mr. Kevin Garcia.com. Say what's up, Kevin.
What's up, Kevin?
One day.
No,
One
mom,
day,
it's
that's just
way.
gonna stop. One day it's gonna stop. One day it's gonna stop. But you know what? The people want it. They expect it. You can't let your crowd down, right? Speaking of people pleasing and crowds, and people are excited. We're excited to have and very pleased to have with us tonight Miss Veronique Medrano. Say what's up, Veronique.
Pew, 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 pew. Puro pinche
There you
956
go.
a la verga. Woo!
Woo! There you go. Puro party. Puro pinche party. My wife bought your shirt at a con. She wears a piñata one. Says puro
Oh my
pinche
god,
party.
I love it.
Wait, what are these shirts? I don't think I've seen your shirts.
Yes.
Oh
and
man.
Oh my god, that's an entire conversation we're gonna have about
Okay.
my
Gonna have to
merchandise.
cover that later.
Definitely. But Primo,
yes.
before we dive into the conversations and the chaos and the just trust me, we started talking and then we didn't hit record. So this is like a second recording now, guys. So we'll see if it goes the same way or
Don't
not.
reveal the
But-
secrets behind the curtain.
You're
It
not
is what it
supposed
is,
to
man. I
reveal
mean,
the
it's the
secret
shoestring
sauce.
budget.
It's not a sauce.
It removes the
Sauce is a
illusion.
secret.
I mean, I'm not in a studio. I'm literally like in an empty den with like, next to
Look,
a set of
I see a
rims.
curtain behind
and an
you. I
ironing
assume
board.
You're in a studio.
It's a curtain because I can't afford a fourth wall. This is a curtain.
Don't
Look.
acknowledge the fourth wall. We've
empty.
covered that.
Mira,
That's what I do here,
this
man.
is my
Keep it real,
podcast
Primos.
now. I am the
That's what
captain
gets
now.
She-Hulk in trouble.
She's
You
in
see
charge.
me? I
She's
am
in
the
charge.
captain now. This is my
driving. She's driving.
podcast.
Toss her the keys. Toss her the keys. Here we go. Primos, but of course, housekeeping. You can follow us on our socials at My Primos Podcast. And of course, myprimospodcast.com, where we have all our shows, our reviews, our posts, any wackiness we get on the website. And of course, you can follow Mr. Kevin Garcia _com. Let's get him to us 10K on that TikTok.
I'm
And
getting there.
at Veronique 956.
See,
follow her.
That's all about showing where you're from. I love that. Whenever I even
956.
mention like the Valley in TikTok, always at least one comment. 956, and you know what? Yes,
This is the thing.
100%.
I'm
Love
from
that.
California, as you can tell, my LA, my swag. But when you tell me, oh, I grew up in the Valley, I'm like, oh, why? It's so hot and weird in the San Gabriel Valley. Like, I'm thinking LA. I'm like, you're in the Valley? Oh,
Oh
But
my
when
god!
I went to
it is an
Texas,
entire
that I know, bro.
story.
Entirely different Valley.
whole different
No.
thing.
Not just that, but the more I've gone to LA, the more that particular conundrum has actually occurred to me now. Before, couldn't have cared less about how I said things. Now I have to say deep South Texas. And there's a reason for that too. There's a reason for that particular wording too.
Yeah, no, seriously. I can't tell you how many times I'll meet somebody from like San Antonio and they're like, yeah, I'm in South Texas. You are not in South Texas, San Antonio. I'm sorry. Like at least Corpus
Whoa.
Christi and below, at least.
There's a reason for that, which we will get into, but the biggest reason for that is obviously it's just historical. You know, like it is because the border used to end right around San Antonio. So Mexico owned from like around San Antonio, like under San Antonio
That
down.
only lasted a couple of years though, like less than 5 years.
I mean, my God, how long
Okay.
was Mexico not part of the US? So like that's how people like engaged with Texas until, you know, the Mexican-American War. And then
I'm still sore about that, by the way.
we all are. Our asses still hurt to this day. But you know, like when you get into that, it then pushed the border down to Brownsville, down to these areas and why it looks the way it does. And so when people say South Texas, I kind of forgive them now because the mentality is still from a lot of generational understanding from a lot of Anglo families that is South Texas because that technically was where it was. Now I have to clarify deep South Texas because then they go like it automatically changes the conversation. And it's no longer, oh, hey, you know, I'm talking about Texas. Now it's like, oh, there's something further if she's saying deep South Texas. And then
There's
it
more to
immediately
it.
changes the conversation. I'm telling you it does.
But my thing is, I look at a map. I look at a map, and in the center of the map, like not like the geographic, not like the what's I'm looking for, not geographical, not the mathematical center, I guess, but like there's a mass, right? In the center of the mass, you got San Antonio and Austin. Like you can't get much more center Texas than that.
Yeah, but you have to think about people who are coming from the Midwest, who are coming from the West, who are coming from the East Coast, and their definition of where the north of Texas starts is the Panhandle, the northest part of the state. And then by the time they get to the middle, they think that's south. And then from that point on, they don't want to go any further south.
Well, you know what? Honestly, whenever you talk about white people from the north, whenever I talk to somebody, a white person who's not been farther south than San Antonio, they always say the same thing. They're like, "Oh, you're from Brownsville? Is your family safe? Are they okay?"
Whoa.
And I'm like, sometimes the first couple times that happened, I answered it seriously. I was like, "Oh yeah, they're doing fine, thanks." And then I was like, "Wait, hold on. Are you saying because of the immigration crisis, or are you saying because of the drug war? Like, which one of the things do you think is killing people? Because it's not really in Brownsville, either of it." You know,
I will confirm and deny both of these things.
Well, no, like it's tangential to. Like I know people in Brownsville that I used to go to Mexico all the time just to get tacos, and people don't want to go anymore. But like, it's not.
I'll go with you, Kevin.
But
come down. Let's go. I have my passport.
Always.
I just got it.
I have my passport too. But it's not a war zone that people seem to think it is.
No, it's not. And you know, this is supposed to be a nerdy podcast, and this is what you guys got. This is what you guys got. This is what you get.
This is nerdy. This is
the vegetables.
Geographical nerdiness.
This is the vegetables before the dessert. So enjoy yourselves now.
Soup to nuts, everybody. We're at the soup. Okay, we're at the soup.
We're at the soup.
We're at the soup. Wait till we get to the nuts. That's always the best part.
Bro, where do you go eat that there's soup and then they give you nuts?
You don't know that phrase? Oh, sorry for the ASMR
bars.
No.
You never heard. Okay, so traditionally when you had a 7-course meal, you start off with the soup, right, course. You work your way down to the dessert, which usually included a nut, some type of pecan or almond or
that just sounds dirty, sir.
So anyway, let's gatekeep Freddie out of this. Go on, Veronique. Continue.
Why are you calling her Veronica, bro?
I said Veronique. I said Veronique. I stuttered, but I said Veronique.
I'm the one you're gonna beer, and you're swearing.
No, mom and dad, no fighting.
Okay. Point is, when I moved to Texas, people were telling me,
stay together for Veronique.
I'm from LA. It's true. For Veronique, we'll stay together. But when I moved to Texas from LA, it was like, oh, I'm in Dallas. And they're like, hey, you're in Central Texas. I'm like, on the map, it doesn't look like it's Central Texas. Because I'm like an hour away from fucking Oklahoma.
I've been
Like, how
corrected
does that
several
work?
times that Dallas is not Central Texas or
But
North
see,
Texas.
this is where I once again state for anyone outside of the state, they straight up include the Panhandle as north and then
Yes.
just move down. And
I
once
mean,
you
that
get,
fucking garrote looking thing at the top of Texas.
yup, that's
Okay.
what they count.
There you
Think
go.
about it. Think about just how dumb that is.
But is it like, isn't it like this? Like Texas is a gun?
Yes.
Or is this
Yes.
part? Okay.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, Texas is a gun.
Texas
There you go.
is a gun.
Yeah, Texas is a gun.
Put that on a
That's
shirt.
what I've been told. Welcome to Texas, and it's like this. It's a gun. And I was like, okay, there we go, Texas. No,
But
I get the idea of being like, knowing. So, of course, right now living here for so long, when they tell me, "Oh, I live in the valley," I immediately my brain goes, "Oh, we're in Texas." Remember, we're in Texas. That's way down there. And then you said yourself, I've never.
Look,
Every time I tell people, "Oh, I'm going to go to El Paso," or "I'm going to go down that part of town," they're like, "Why?" There's no reason to go there. What is that mentality? Why?
So that mentality comes from a place like Kevin was talking about earlier. There, like a lot of us remember back in the 90s and 2000s. Don't get me wrong, there was horrible things that were going on. There was a drug war, just like there is one in the United States.
yeah,
All of those things exist. But like here's the thing is that like for us it takes on a different tone because I will agree with people 2008 2009 2010 those were some gnarly years. That's when we finally got to see what was on the news.
yeah.
That's when our border communities started to feel it because and to the point that it felt it to such an extent that there was a quick turnaround from the governments on both sides to figure it out because it was affecting tourism. And so just imagine 3 years and like, here's a very good example. And I'm going to be honest, that shit happened and it was crazy. Let me preface this story with that. It happened, it's crazy, but then it suddenly never happened again. Here's why. Because I was at school. So UTB, or what was formerly UTB, now it is UTRGB. If you look it up, it is literally smack dab on top of the border. So like the border walls here, all of these folks are here. Here's the university. Just this is where they are. This is where the university is. They're next door neighbors.
Literally, people who don't know, the University of Texas that's down there is literally on the border. I used to teach at the high school that's about a quarter mile from the border. But literally the property, to the point, by the way, that when Bush was building his fence across Texas, the original plan was to build around the university golf course, which was hilarious because that would mean only the Border Patrol would be allowed to go golfing. After a lot of
That's what I was
complaining,
thinking. Like, hold on, like,
Yup, only the border. It was an entire
his
fight. Go look it
concern was
up. It was an entire ass
yeah,
fight.
I worked for the newspaper at the time. I remember writing about it several times. It was hilarious.
That's
It
so
was
It's
funny.
funny. So he worked for the newspaper, and then I eventually worked for that same newspaper. So funny. Again, like circles.
Whoa.
The circles are really small in the valley because
Yeah.
it's literally an hour worth of like at least 4, 5, or 6 towns. I'm gonna probably mess up towns. But yeah, like it just is what it is. But like I was at school and I was working as an like for one of like the programs that the university was doing for other kids. So
Okay.
I was a student employee. That's the best way to describe it. I know it was not a TA position. I was not teaching anyone anything. So I was doing that. And in the middle of class, we just hear sirens going off all across the building. And then they're pushing us in from one side of the building all the way to the other, where there's no windows, where you can't see shit. We're stuck there for about an hour. Nobody's talking. Then you start hearing the noise in the midst of this hour. Like the moment that things are moving really fast, a bunch of noises, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then boom, you're in a room and then you hear it. And like hearing gunfire, hearing shit like that is already traumatic enough. But then when you realize that your car is in the parking lot and at least like a dozen or so cars that were out there, from students to teachers to people working, had gotten shot up from spillover gunfire that was happening in the midst of this like gang wars that was going on. And that's when it hit us. But let me be clear. It happened 3 different times in the set of a few weeks. Dozen or so times. I will tell you, suddenly it stopped happening when an entire ass, what do they call those things? Tanks.
Yeah.
A whole ass tank moved through town.
A U.S. tank, I'm assuming.
A U.S. tank moving through town to the border, pointed.
Wow.
And we were like,
Can I just say that when they recently had that situation where those 3 college kids from the U.S. were kidnapped, and one of them died, and they released them back to the cartel released them immediately as soon as it became news, and then they tied up one of their members, dropped them off at the police station, and said it's his fault. He's the one that did it. And my only thought was, they're just like, oh, we don't want to poke that bear. We don't want to wake up the U.S. again.
It's because of that. Like, there was a lot of show of force. Like, it wasn't publicized in the news. Let me be clear. It's really hilarious what gets publicized in the news and what doesn't. Yeah. And the stuff that gets publicized is the stuff that is super theatrical.
And when you say publicized, you mean nationwide?
Yeah, nationwide.
Yeah, because there were so many things that I remember covering that I'm like, why is this not nationwide news? And it wasn't, because they didn't care about us.
No. And it was crazy. So for those who like, unfortunately, those times which did exist in the 2000s.
Yeah. The aughts. I like to say the aughts.
The aughts. Thank you. The aughts.
Why do you get so offended, man? It is what it is. It's 20 years ago.
No, I love saying the aughts because 2000s is technically a whole century, but aughts makes you feel older.
No, I got you. But the aughts. So for those who are unaware, like, the narrative of the Valley got tainted so bad because of that particular era in time that was happening everywhere. And it's been politicized enough. And I'm sure this is not a political podcast, but again, for those who are like, hey, let me know where you're from. No, there is no danger in where I'm from. I'm perfectly fine. It is not a war zone. It is not a third world country.
Exactly.
I've had folks from Dallas,
well, even that
marketing
agencies.
Is
problematic.
Yeah, even like, again, it is problematic, but it's like they treat us like we are a third world country war zone when we are none of those things. And we are literally within the United States.
So like, while we've been talking about this, I brought up a map, and I want to kind of show this, kind of shift gears a little bit. This is a map that basically shows Texas as seen by Texans. You know what I mean?
Oh, God.
Like, we talk about we talk about deep South Texas. It's what's here, the lower Rio Grande Valley. Technically, the Rio Grande Valley goes all the way to El Paso, but like the lower Rio Grande Valley, that's what we're really talking about. And when people say South Texas, yeah, I generally agree with that being South Texas, except it shouldn't include San Antonio. I don't believe that. But that being said, San Antonio can't be hill country because it's really not hill country, you know? And so that makes sense. And then, you know, it breaks it all down. And I think for a lot of people, talking about this becoming a political podcast, for a lot of people who are all worried about the border crisis, none of them live near the border.
None of them. And
literally.
And I will just, you know what, this is a great segue. I'm going to be super honest. The inadvertently was a great segue for the comic that we'll be releasing in March,
which I learned about,
called Dragon Thrall. It is
from Chispa Comics.
From Chispa Comics. It is the 13 Origins 13. Dragon Thrall.
Well, tell us about it. What's the book about, Veronique?
So, the 13 Origins Dragon Thrall, I just want to let everybody know it is my first comic book out for consumption. It is the first one I have written, one of many that are coming out over the next few years. So don't think that this is just a one and done for me. I'm in the industry. You can't take me out now. And so the story itself is about a dreamer, somebody who is a migrant dreamer kid, and their experience, dealing with immigration, dealing with just these unfortunate situations that happen, and how it leads quite accidentally to her getting powers from the fireworm. And so all of this is just drenched in deep lore. But to top it all off, I get the wonderful privilege of having my words being illustrated by Steph C. She is an amazing illustrator from Mexico. And to be able to just continue with my full ethos and pathos of trying to be authentically present with my personhood and the personhood of my characters who are Mexicanos as much as I possibly can. And so the story does take place in Tequila, Jalisco. And it is just such a beautiful story. I really cannot commend Steph enough. Like, she has made art out of what is one girl's very, very small dream of being, in somebody's stacks on with a little piece of tape on the back of the book. Like,
Yeah, in
truly.
somebody's short box, right?
Yeah, I'm in
I've seen the
somebody's
preview
short
art.
box.
It
Thank
looks
you.
really, really good. I've seen the preview art. I'm very excited about it.
Like,
I've seen the
truly,
cover and a couple previews. It looks really good too. Definitely.
I think the beautiful part about the story itself is that I was able to really encapsulate Mexico. And while there are different stories that happen around the US, I made it a challenge for myself to try to capture, the other side of the border.
Mhm.
Because it's not something that even in comics is very much done. When we think of comic books about Mexico, there is that sepia-ness to it all.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
That
there's
that
this very Western vibe, and this does not give that. This is definitely a celebration of color and sound, and just wow. I really cannot commend Steph C enough. There is a reason why the woman is booked and busy with Marvel and DC and with these companies, and I get to just usher words. I get to usher words into the world, and she gets to make them beautiful. And like I said, I just really want to shout her out, because if you guys don't know who she is, really, really great artist. And she's not here today, but I just really want to commend her for
with
that.
us in spirit.
She's with us truly in Dragon Thrall spirit. But I really love the book. I had to get pulled back from some of the crazy shit I wanted to do, because I had to remember this was a YA book. But
Speaking of the craziness of the book, you wrote Dragon Thrall. I've written Coneja, which is not coming out till October. And the plan after that is to have Terry Blas do the follow-up series.
Yeah.
And Terry kept saying, watching you and I
duke it out in the
verbally duke it out, I guess.
Verbally
Yeah,
duke
we
it out.
were metaphorically at each other's throats, but in a fun way, in good spirit. When we
Yes.
were at an event, he's like, "I'm gonna make sure Dragon Thrall and Coneja like Coneja's constantly being annoying, but not on purpose." And I'm like, you know what? That feels accurate.
That feels super accurate. And here's the thing: is like I think there's a bit of, for those who know Kevin in this podcast, you do not know Kevin like I know Kevin, and I know Kevin in a way locally, that maybe you guys don't understand his impact for a little small town on the border.
Oh, look at Kevin. Sit up there, man. Get a little chest out there, Kevin. Do it.
All right. I mean,
Let
like,
Veronique just fill you up a little bit.
I don't take compliments well. Like, I talk a lot, but it's very hard for me to like internalize it. I'm like, okay, sure. They're saying that sarcastically. Okay, cool. I can take it
He's
sarcastically.
kind of blushing, right? Veronique,
like,
you can kind of see it.
He is like,
right?
he stopped speaking.
He stops. Whoa, that's it. That's it. When he stops speaking, that's the tell. That's the tell. That's Kevin Garcia.
But here's the thing: is
That's
that Kevin, we come from a very small town that's literally on the border, and to try to represent where you're from is not an easy task. I can attest, and I'm sure Kevin can attest too. When you feel insular, creatively within a community that doesn't really support it, or an environment that doesn't really support it, it makes it really hard to be a creative. I was very blessed. I say this all the time. I'm super blessed that my parents gave me the name that they gave me and knew the type of person I would become. because
Nice.
no one gives a name like Veronique to somebody in a border town community where almost everyone speaks Spanish without knowing that it would create something, it would just be pressure for a diamond. And I was blessed with some very creatively supportive parents who are creatives themselves in their own little fun ways. And, to have that made a different person. But, I look at Kevin and I look at, he was doing things 10 times before me because, he's
Because I'm
older
old.
than me. No, but it's just like you were
Because
working
he's
at
old.
the newspaper
Sure,
before I
sure.
worked there. So many different things that like our paths are always crossing. And, I remember like, and this is what's crazy. It's the full circle moment of it all is I remember Kevin and me at our local comic book shop. And then to see us together as comic book writers, him as, somebody who is very well established and well respected within the community, especially with Marvel Comics, especially with comic book history. And then myself being a first time writer, bro, it's everybody's dream to like come up with your comic book friends. Like it is everybody's dream. And so I get to live that dream every flippin' day. And that's why I say, for those of you who do not understand why it is important that Kevins exist, the Kevin in your life, literally, Kevins exist because there is a Kevin in your life, your friend who is at the comic book shop, who loves and is so passionate about this medium that they could be the next writer and they could remember you and they could remember that support. And so that's why I'm taking this time to just give everybody their
Man, go grab a
flowers.
beer right now and like to Kevin Garcia, everybody.
Kevin
Because
Garcia.
crack one for Kevin Garcia _.com. Mhm.
See, while
Wow.
you are gushing here, my first thought is to deflect and say, "Hey, you have a Freddie Fender record behind you. Talk about local pride."
Love Freddie Fender. I mean, every Freddie man stands out.
Well, Freddie Fender was a hit back in the day from San Benito, and so literally the water tower says the home of Freddie Fender.
Yep. And
You've been involved in a lot of recently. I mean, I follow you. I follow your feed online, and you have been petitioning or helping petition to get Freddie Fender into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Correct?
Yes. And again,
We
I
talk about
say
Freddie
like,
Fender.
Yeah,
like
Let's talk
Freddie
about Freddie
Fender,
Fender.
we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the timeless classic record Before the Next Teardrop Falls. And I have been petitioning for the last 2 years to get him inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. And a lot of people will be like, what, isn't he already in there already? No, he's not. I know because I do the
Shame.
research. And he is truly the first Mexican American who really encapsulated being a migrant, who really encapsulated being Mexicano and American, and really just proudly being from South Texas and sharing that culture with the world. And my God, he had a #1 record. The record that you guys see behind me is Freddie Fender's record that he recorded while he was in jail. This is not highly in print. We're actually trying to find out more about the story behind this record because it was recorded inside the Louisiana State
Wow.
Prison.
Honestly, I didn't know about that record.
Yeah,
I
and
knew
it
That's
I knew that he
crazy.
was in prison for a
quietly
bit.
released in 1975 in the midst of the success of Before the Next Teardrop Falls.
Yeah,
I remember finding a record store in LA because I'm a music geek and I love Freddie Fender because it was always like, oh, Freddie, I'm Freddie. What's this Freddie Fender guy? Who's this Freddie Mercury guy?
you got to keep track of those Freddies. They're good at music.
Good at music. There you go. But Ready for Freddie. I had that record. Like I actually had the vinyl, Ready for Freddie. And that was my thing for a while. Like, are you ready for Freddie? Because I got it from that record. And people were like, where did you get that from? And I'm like, in South Central LA, listening to, Freddie Fender or listening to Winona Jackson or listening to just like this old country, all this stuff coming up. And it's amazing. For those that don't know, Veronique singer, performer as well. And definitely love your record, by the way. I told you that. I love your music. Bum 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 is dope. I was playing it earlier. But I love the fact that you're passionate, about la cultura, comunidad, and the fact that even with the music and writing and just in yourself. I mean, when I met you, we just hit it off. It was great. I mean, it was a
I was
blast. But I
strong
feel like
bad.
whenever you have passion, oh yeah, you're strong, Brad. You were a wrestler. You were wrestling that day too. I remember. That's
You
fun.
know what? I had blocked that out for a quick second.
No,
But,
dude, it is like I have
but yeah,
pictures.
my brother was a massive fan of Strong Bad, and you had that down, even down to the voice. So yeah,
What's funny is I try to do the voice outside of the mask now, and I
it's
can't.
not the same.
It's not the same.
No,
like
you
it
need-
You gotta
actually.
put the mask on.
You know what's
One, I
funny?
have to
is-
put the mask on. Number two, I was talking with a bunch of the wrestlers afterwards because I said, "Bro, I feel like I'm hyperventilating in here," and they were like, "Yeah, bruh. Like, look at the nose holes; they're super small. You're gonna die in there."
So I remember watching footage of Jim Henson, and he's trying to do the Kermit voice, and he couldn't do it. And then he lifted up Kermit, and suddenly he could do it. And that's what it comes down to. You have to be
Yes.
that
That's
to
it.
be in character.
You have to wear the mask. You have to
I
wear the
have-
mask. You have to.
Yes.
You have to
Oh
put on
my
a
god,
mask.
the fact that you brought up a Kermit reference. Oh my god, love Jim Henson.
Everybody should.
A very complex human being, but
sure.
overall, truly a consummate artist, a consummate creator, somebody that is just like
Had a
like,
dream
there's
and believed in it.
yeah, there's a few people that like I go, my God, like if I could have a career like, Robin Williams, if I could have a career like Jim Henson, if I could have a career that would make me timeless for people,
Mhm.
I think I've done everything I need to do.
So what you're saying is you need to have the career of Veronique Medrano.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
If
you have to be
I definitely
release a
do.
record, release a kid's book, release a comic book,
Yes.
release a merch line.
Exactly.
You have to
Everything.
go on tour. You have to be with the CMT channel. You
I
have to be
know,
at the
right?
Music Awards. You
I'm
have to
gonna
be at
have
the
to have
Grammys.
Freddie and Kevin, the Primos podcast is going on the road.
Hey, let's do it. Let's go. Get
Let's
theaters
go.
going, man. I'm telling you, Elia and me been talking about doing events. We can make it happen, Veronique. Trust me.
You.
But let's talk about that. You haven't really and I love this conversation, not to derail it, right? But with music, let's talk about that. I mean, I want you to flex a little bit and brag, like your music career and, how you came about it. I mean, yeah, the name helps, right? Veronique. And
It's very
you're
unique.
right. It's weird. Very, very, very unique. Somebody told me once, says, "Oh, what is this?" Oh, it's Veronique. They're, oh, I would have said Veronique. And I was like, no, it's Veronique. It's unique. Veronique. You get it? They're like, oh, okay. But she's Latina, right? And I go, yeah, it's just Veronique. Very, very unique. But let's jump in. Let's talk about your music and kind of tell us how that came about and your project you currently have out. Definitely. You guys got to check it out. It's really good.
So, with my music, I recently released my first fully co-produced record. So I had a lot of decision making. This was the first time that I could flex my ear in making decisions on how things sounded sonically with another producer. That was freaking great, but it was very, very challenging because when making this record, which is called Mexi Americana, I had to kind of really decide, did I want to finally stretch my bilingual legs and create music that was both in English, in Spanish, and in both languages in one song, and take the risk and go out there and do it in Tejano, well, actually in Tex-Mex country, which is a mix of Tejano and country music. And honestly, it was the best decision I ever made for myself. It has opened up creatively a lot of the doors in my brain on how I engage and interact. But furthermore, I have had the true blessing that even though I released it towards the end of the year, that people are still talking about it coming into 2024. I just got a review by Ed Helms of The Office and Hangover fame. And he runs a bluegrass company that now is expanding into country. And he remembered my music to the point that he went and looked at the rest of my discography and recommended my music and said that it was Tejano coming back to country music. And that is an honor beyond words, being on Billboard and getting reviewed by Billboard, getting reviewed by Ed Helms, getting reviewed by, every big country publication and then
Yeah.
national music publications. Again, I don't think that like the me that thought, when I was little and living in a border town that I would jet out of here, go to New York, be a Broadway star. Quien me creo? Bet me creo.
Mm.
Pero, thinking all of that, and that at the end of the day, I get the beautiful blessing of being here, being home, being around family, and then being able to be myself authentically no matter where I go. I'm really glad that I started my career after my 20s or within my 20s instead of, trying to go for it when I was young. Like a lot of us thought. We were in the 90s. Everybody thought they were going to be
Yeah.
the next kid star. Everybody thought they were going to be Macaulay Culkin or Britney Spears.
Right.
Or, they were going to be that. But there's only one of them for a reason. And so, my musical journey has definitely been one of a lot of self-exploration. I have 4 albums out now, 4 fully fleshed out albums, 2 EPs, and we're working on a 5th record. Yeah, you heard me
Wow.
right. We just released one at the end of last year. We're already working
What
on
you're
the
saying
next
is you're taking it slow.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm just a leisurely pace, just gotta get the blood pumping, gotta get the lungs working,
I mean, it's like, when do you ever have like a dinner and just have a day off and relax? It feels like you don't.
I don't, but I know that there's a reason for it. Um, I've been grinding for about 10 years, and what's a few more?
Mm.
I know where I'm at. Like where I'm at now and compared to where I was when I first started, oh, totally different. Like I was working a full-time job. I mean, shoot, even before the pandemic, I was doing a full 40-hour week job. A full-time course load for a master's degree. Full-time, not part-time, full-time as if I did not have a job. So think of how many classes that is for anybody that's curious what that might be. And then I think that's like 4, right, Kevin? Like 3 or 4. So 3 or 4. I think it's 4.
You're asking numbers to an English teacher. Numbers are not my thing.
But
I
a
can tell you-
master's degree is like 3 or 4 classes, which are like ridiculous
okay.
hours.
So the other thing is, I got my bachelor's in 7 years, but in my defense, I got 2 bachelors out of it. But then it was another 9 years for my master's. So I'm not the one to talk about what the standard is.
Look, just cut Kevin's time in half.
There
And
you
just
go.
think of how many numbers that is, and that's a lot. So I'm doing 40 hours a week on that full-time course load as if I don't have a job with my master's program, and then working my music career full-time, which isn't like as soon as I get off work and as soon as I'm done with classes, guess what I'm doing? Scheduling stuff, going into production, songwriting. Like I have lived that life. I live that life now a lot less stressfully. And so to me, I've moved from the grind to now just being able to moving to creating comfortably. And that is a luxury that I grinded for. So before anyone tells me, oh, you're being lazy. No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. Like Freddie said, I think for me, there is no break because I can already see where my trajectory is that I want to get to, so that I can kind of start building things for the next one. And now it's like every plateau point is some nice, steady stuff, because one of the things that they don't tell you about the growth of being an artist is that you need to start to understand the rhythms of how things move, because once you figure it out, you're going to really love when it's not moving so fast, and you're going to really be creating your best within those times, because otherwise everyone's going to expect you to be at 100 at all times. And the only times you don't get to be is as soon as you close the door to the hotel room and you take off your clothes and you go to bed. That is the only time that you get to be you. And you have to be okay with that. Sometimes the struggle is worth the price. because then you get to do what you want.
But in that hotel room, you have free time. You could be recording podcasts. You could be setting up. Yeah,
It's too much extra work. I'm dead ass.
Too much free time is what it is.
No.
No, I completely 100% agree with you. I know exactly how that feels, not to the same level, but like I've never had only one job. I've always done multiple things. I take it back. There are very few times where I've had only one job, and I felt like something's missing because I'm always writing for one thing or working for another thing, and then teaching, and then also freelancing over here. It's always something.
That is a cat, and that is our break.
I need to get my cat because she woke up.
Meow. Meow. Meow.
Nunca tenías mi corazón, fue tu error, ahogado en tu rencor. Me sigues como fan, cada mensaje que mandas perdido, como cualquiera en mi teléfono, ya no te guardo. Y si dices
Welcome back,
que
Primos.
fuimos
Thank you so
algo,
much
no
for
te
sticking with us here
reclamo.
after that chaotic first half of the show. Thanks, Kevin Garcia. You're out of
Well,
control,
I mean,
man.
look, whenever praising me comes up, it's gonna take over. It's gonna take over everything.
Mike
I understand.
literally died because we were praising Kevin Garcia so much. It was like,
Two
shut up,
mics. Two mics went out.
Kevin's
Two
show.
different mics
Two
went out.
in
Mics.
2 cities.
In
Two mics in two different cities in the deep south of Texas and up here in central Texas, whatever.
I don't
that is.
even know anymore.
Where he is.
I don't even know anymore. I think
Quote,
I'm not in
unquote.
the hill country, so
But Primos, you just listened to Veronique herself with Pam Pam Pam. I've been jamming that song recently when I walk the dog. I do have a doggo now, Max.
and I'm
Pretty
now
much
following
podcast, yep.
Veronique on Spotify because I can't believe I wasn't already. Like I thought I had been.
Loser.
I know.
Loser.
I know.
Can't do that, man. You gotta follow everybody. Everybody
No.
in this family.
No.
Your
I have to follow
cheeseflings.
everybody. I have to
Your
follow everybody
cheeseflings.
who's good and
Whoa.
a prima.
Whoa.
There we go.
Tread lightly. She just praised you so much. She blew you up. Be careful. Be careful. Be careful. Look at her. Look at her. She's crazy. She's crazy. She's strong. She's bad. Strong.
So
There you
we've
go.
been talking this whole. We've
Some
been
bad
talking this
bitch
whole
energy
time
right there.
about
There you
like
go.
the culture and the traditions of South Texas. We've been talking about the regions of Texas. We're talking about the struggle of being a bilingual musician, trying to make our way, our way. I'm not a musician. Make your way in the industry. And
Yeah, Kevin's so
all I
full
could
of
think this whole
himself, right?
time was throughout my entire childhood and into the early 90s was like when I was a teenager, they were like, Selena is going to be the one to break it. Selena's going to be the one to just break it wide open. And at the time they were comparing her to Madonna, but I think that would have been kind of small compared to how big she had gotten so quickly. And
Did you know, Kevin, that
and
there
there's
was
this
a documentary
Yeah.
just recently released?
So I watched this documentary
What are you guys
specifically
talking
because
Hold
I
on,
heard
hold on, Kevin,
Veronique
hold on.
wanted to talk
I
about
don't
it.
think.
No.
Hold
What
on,
are you guys
hold
talking
on.
about? What is this documentary that you speak
Okay, so hold on,
of?
Veronique. Hold on. Sit down. Or you're
Is
already
it like
sitting.
is it
You
like
don't wanna
did
stand up?
Netflix put out like a new show that has Brownsville Mountains in it? Like I need to know.
All right.
They find
God.
is that the
Brownsville-
Oh my God,
documentary?
The hills
That
of
reminds me of
Brownsville.
oh my God, there was this HBO movie back in the 90s called Second Civil War. And literally they're like, I'm in Brownsville, Texas, and there's mountains behind them. I'm like, where the hell is that?
I mean, that's what I
is
thought.
that the documentary we're talking about? We're talking
Well,
about them finally like
it's-
putting to rest.
You may want to take a beat and
Okay.
just brace yourself a little bit.
Okay.
But the murderer of Selena,
Yeah.
Who?
Yolanda, is the main topic of an Oxygen channel documentary where
Is
She
she,
spends
the new,
about-
wait. Is she like the new person on the Bad Girls Club? Like what? Like what's
I
happening?
mean,
Bad Girls Club
I'm a fan of Bad
takes
Girls
on
Club. I think it's
Yolanda?
like Scared Straight Yolanda. You don't
Scared
know,
Straight
like
Yolanda.
but-
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
is that
'Cause,
what
I mean,
this
ooh, be
documentary
careful.
is?
She's gonna shoot you. But she is trying to convince the general public because it's next year in March.
Yeah. Next year
she
she's up for it.
is up for parole, and
It's
she is
weird.
trying to convince us
That
that
she
it was
didn't
an
shoot
accident.
Selena?
Well,
No,
it's,
Oh, that it was an accident. Oh, so
It's an
like all
accident.
what? What?
no, but here's the thing though. everybody who's been talking to me about this has been saying it as if she's already been paroled, and I'm like, no, she'd be up for parole next year. So there's no guarantee. Now, is it likely that she's paroled? I mean, I
No,
would say
absolutely
probably,
not.
but
I'm,
like,
I'm gonna tell you right now, like one of the biggest things with parolees is that they have to show some kind of remorse to start with.
true.
And I'm going to tell you this: whoever thought that the timing was correct, I'm sorry, Yolanda is not Gypsy Rose.
Yeah, there's a
Like,
big difference. There's a
like,
big
like,
Wow.
let's be like. I don't know what people were thinking. Did they think that like it was like, oh no, I killed for a reason, bro? Gypsy Rose and Yolanda, not the same people. Number one.
So
Number
if
two,
you haven't watched it, let me give you the bird's eye view of it, and we can tear it apart. Because Kevin
Yeah,
sat
please.
through it. I sat through both episodes.
and
Veronique, since you're
I
just,
chose not to. Why? Because
I didn't know that was an option.
well,
I
I could
mean,
choose not to
somebody's
because I'm the
making it.
guest.
True. You know what?
True.
You know what? Fair. That is fair. All right, Freddie.
So let's give
break it
Elia
down for us.
Maria, because Elia was not able to be in the show. She watched it and she's straight up like, nothing she said validates what she did. Guilty. Catch my hands. March 31st, 2025. Like that's
Translation:
Elia's
Elliot
response.
said, "I love the documentary and everything she." No, she did not say that. At
No,
all.
Don't
she
you
did not say
dare.
that.
I told her. I told her I
She'll
would
come
say
on
that.
here
she
and
said she
drag
told me
your
so.
ass from
She will
immediately
literally
said,
jump on
fucking
screen right
Dallas.
now and choke you.
She'll jump you.
She's gonna find you. There you go. See? There you go.
Told you the spirit, her spirit lives in us.
It's through me. Catch his hands.
But
But point is,
Greg,
she's trying to convince you that it's
yeah.
an accident. And you know my opinion right now? When I watch this thing, all I did was get more pissed off, annoyed at her family, because her family was sitting there going, woe is me. Like, oh man, it's just my aunt. And people were treating me bad because of what she did. And even though it was an accident, and all these things led up to her accidentally having the gun go off and killing Selena. And she says that at the end of the documentary, it went off. I was trying to commit suicide, and then she ran away, and the gun went poof and killed her. But there was nothing in that whole 4 hours of my life that showed remorse, that showed that she took full responsibility for it. And they were trying to plead the case. And Kevin, you both were for newspapers, so you know the objective.
Before we break down the meaning of what this all means, I want to keep addressing the documentary itself for a quick second.
Let's go. Do it.
And what I want to say is, this is, I've been in journalism now for 25 years. This year, I've been a professional writer, right? This is bald-faced as much as it can be, one-sided storytelling. And admittedly, they are trying to say, oh, here's a side that isn't heard before. Fair. But that being said, it is nothing else about it is fair. You know, everything about this is like, look how suspicious her father is, who was nowhere near the site and had nothing to do with the actual incident, but he's suspicious nonetheless. You know, and by the way, I cannot look at him and not see Edward James Olmos. But the thing is that like, it's just so, it reminded me of the Firefest documentaries, right? Because if you guys remember, there were two Firefest documentaries that came out the same like month, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And one of them interviewed the people who were like there, who live and work there, and one of them interviewed the guy that put it on. And the one that interviewed the guy that put it on was like, everybody but me was guilty. And if you watch the other video, it was like, it was all him, you know? So it was like, it was ridiculous because it was funny to me watching both documentaries. Like to me, watching one without the other was pointless because they were so hilarious against each other. And in this one, it is 100% Yolanda is not innocent, but she's a victim as well. And that by itself is like, no, we need, if you aren't going to get the family of Selena involved, then at least have somebody give a retrospective on Selena as you're talking about it. Not just, by the way, she was popular, you know? Like,
dude, not only that.
God.
Don't hold on. I mean, and Veronique, please chime in here in a second, but this piece fucked me up more. They were trying to like almost drag her name through the mud at the end of it. They were trying to make her seem like she was also doing dirty shit.
Literally a quote from Yolanda. She was human too. She was also flawed.
I mean, yeah, but we don't need you to tell us that, bitch.
Thank you for all of us.
Like, bitch,
yeah.
The fuck you think? Like, living in a very harsh, like, let's just wrap our minds around, you know, the person that is Selena. And I would like to just outright say, I understand that there's a lot of flack to this one person who got interviewed, and I have his book here. This one. It's called
Yeah.
Selena Como la
Yeah, I've
Flor.
been wondering about that.
Joe Nick Patowski.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it, but here's the thing is that with people who write stuff like this, that initially was not sanctioned by the Quintanillas, but after they read it, left this man alone. Joe Nick Patowski is not a nobody. He is a very well-respected journalist with the Texas Monthly, covered everything about Selena as she was getting big within the state, and was writing about her. Did extensive research. I have actually had the blessing of going through his archives, which anyone can go and check out, by the way.
He's an actual journalist.
Yes, he is an actual factual journalist. He has written the biography for Willie Nelson, sanctioned by Willie Nelson. So like, he is not somebody that is throwing shit around. And
He's
so if
the
you
one
look at
person
his
on that
archives,
show, I was like, why is this guy on here?
so the reason why is because he's probably one of the only few people who would actually do the interview. To be very honest, they probably tried reaching out to chingos of historians, and a bunch of people told him to fuck off. And they had to try a different tact to get information from someone. I don't know for a fact.
So,
but yeah.
Yes. So here's the problem with him being on there, and I don't know this from him, but I know this from other people that I know that have been on documentaries before, and they're like, yeah, I did like an hour of interview with them, and they used the 5 minutes where I was like, well, maybe it was a fake assassination, that kind of stuff. Like not about this situation, obviously.
Well, let's not pretend, right? We understand.
From your guys'
Documentary,
because I didn't watch it. What did you guys get from his?
So
pieces?
From him was 90%, especially the beginning of it, the actual like, here's why Selena was so important. But then whenever they were trying to cut together clips of like, but maybe Yolanda's like sympathetic, there'd be him saying, well, it's very clear we don't have the whole story. And it's like, there was more to that conversation, but they just cut him saying that little bit.
So I want everyone to just give the dude a break.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% agree.
Please read this book.
I know too many people that have been, but give us the full title of the book again, by the way.
So the full title, I'm actually going to pop off this sleeve because it's a very pretty sleeve, but it does not help. So the book is called Selena Como la Flor by Joe Nick Patowski. And it is a beautiful book that really, and I say beautiful in the sense of that it does a really good job of encapsulating the time period in which she was coming up, with a lot of just historical facts, just things that actually happened, the record deals they signed, the things that were going on that were publicized, that they followed, because there was archives of what she was doing from a very young age. The dad was doing when he was opening the restaurant, all of these things that are facts that he was able to, put together so that people can better understand what was happening, on top of the fact that if you really want to understand the breadth of his research when putting together this book, you can go to the Whitliff collections at Texas State University in San Marcos and ask for or asked to look at the Joe Nick Patowski archives, because he donated interviews with Laura Canales, interviews with some of the biggest stars that some who have passed on, others, which was at a very particular point in time when he was doing these interviews for this particular book. So you can kind of understand where he comes from, because it just really sucks that unfortunately he just kind of got caught in a spot where it's yo, I'm a historian. I'm assuming other historians are getting called for this.
I'm assuming you're going to use more of my words.
Yeah, I'm assuming and the fact that they used him as a character, like for historical purposes at the beginning, makes so much sense, because again, it comes from a dude who did the research. Is it cool that it was a bolillo? No, but in regards to the archiving and preservation and historian space, there are more gringos and more white people who represent our culture than ourselves, because either they want us to have a degree. So they have the goalpost, and the goalpost is, okay, we want you to have a degree. Well, you have to have experience talking about these things for XYZ. Okay, you have to have a dissertation. And like they're going to make a whole bunch of different
work.
Well, it's not just that, but one thing that's I think important to understand is that until the past, let's say 10 years, until the past like 10 years or so, it was not uncommon, and they wouldn't say why it is, that they would pick the white names first to put things up. And so the idea of having white historians looking into people of color, hey, it was important that somebody was keeping track of it. Nowadays, especially in the past 10 years, that's really flipped 100%. And it's become a lot more like, why are you having a white person cover this? Why not have somebody from that culture cover it? But like, that was not a discussion in the 90s. That was not even a discussion in the early 2000s. In the aughts, it wasn't a discussion. It should have been. Don't get me wrong.
What I took
And look
one
at the
thing to know
demographic
about
for Oxygen. Look at the fucking demographic for Oxygen. It is those girls that you know who are murder mystery fanatics.
Yep.
Who, you know, that's who they're catering to. So why would they put a brown face in front of them talking about history? I'm going to tell you right now, they were probably having a hard time as it is trying to find a brown historian to begin with who, to back that up.
Remember, like, one thing to keep in mind, when I was in film school, we had a whole thing about documentaries, right? I love documentary film. But the one thing we talked about was, like, you guys know, even news stories, documentaries, whatever it is, they skew a certain way. You're the one that directs that story. Right, period. And this one here was literally, like you said, feeding into that need of like, ooh, there's something dark and hidden here. No, bitch, it's just fucking, she killed her. Like, there's no need to go any further.
Like when they said, oh my God, she's going to tell us some untold secrets. Oh my God, is she going to tell us that she shot Selena? No, bitch, we already knew that. Like, why did
it happen?
For anyone who is worried.
Check this out. Tell me, come on. How blatant, right? We're all writers here. We're all creatives here. We understand how things, reality TV, everything gets kind of maneuvered and controlled, right? Mm-hmm. There is a scene that as soon as it happened, my skin crawled and I was like, oh, this is disgusting. Because there's a scene where it's like the nieces and the nephew. My mic thing fell. Look at that professional here. They're at the table with paperwork, stacks of paperwork, like they're investigating. They're like, oh my God, what's this? A red envelope comes out. It goes, Selena's secret, or the doctor's secret. I forget what the fuck it said. It literally said Selena's secret or the doctor's secret on it. A red envelope. What is this? Do you think this is the secret that Yolanda has? And they go, oh my God. And they open it up. And I'm like, oh my God. They open it like, it's like a little, I want to say like postage stamp size little fold out card that says, con mucho amor de tu amigo, doctor, whatever the fuck. And oh, well, I wouldn't say amor to a friend. But is
Bro,
this
have
the
you
secret?
not met a Mexican? Have you not met a Mexican in your whole ass life who speaks Spanish all the time?
My wife were like, what the fuck are we watching? And she's like,
you make your wife watch this?
Es una pinche telenovela.
Ella empezó, and I got sucked in.
Don't lower telenovelas by comparing them to this.
To watch it. I had to pay for Peacock to watch it. I was like, I have to pay for this? And she's like, yes, pay for it. And I was like, fuck. All right, here we go.
I want you all to understand, this bitch is not getting out. That family has attorneys upon attorneys upon attorneys who are going to literally go to the parole board. They know how to structure, because at the end of the day, a parole hearing or a hearing to get parole is truly like, this is so fucking wild for this podcast. This went everywhere. It went from, from border politics to now the law. So I am a philosophy of law student. And
there you go, everybody.
Hey, everybody needs to be
that lady right there. Veronique, you want unique? You want a content? You got it.
I'm not a lawyer. Please do not hire me.
Every single person has told me that if by some miracle she does get paroled, she needs to change her name, get facial reconstruction surgery, and move to Europe. That's like the only way.
She was crying that they were worried about poisoning her, and her family was worried about being poisoned at taco places. We would go to Mexican restaurants.
Bitch, I hope you get food poisoning 2 times a week.
We would be scared to go to a Mexican restaurant because people were like, maybe they're gonna poison us. And I was like, oh, shut the fuck up. Nobody knows who you are.
I mean, really, this is the thing that the family has really made a point. I think they thought they were doing something. I think that they thought that they were doing something because look at what happened with Gypsy Rose. And, you know, you have this narrative of, and again, totally different circumstances. Yeah. Totally different circumstances. But you have like this this rehabilitation of a murderer and the image of a murderer. And you know,
that one everybody knew from the beginning should not have been what it was.
yes, but it was still murder. So
Yeah,
like
no, it's still,
it was straight up still murder, but
I
there's
mean,
so much.
yeah,
It was
it's a murder.
her mom's dead.
yeah, you're not wrong.
Like it's still murder. But at
But-
the end of the day, you know, Yolanda's not in that same place.
No.
Number one. Number two, the biggest deal and the biggest difference between Gypsy Rose and Yolanda Saldivar is that one of them expressed fucking remorse. This bitch is making it really easy to make a case against her for having expressed no remorse for the taking of a life and not seeing where they had fault. And so
Dude,
that
no
is one
lie.
of like the biggest things with like even getting released early.
The last 5 minutes of the documentary is when she says, "Yeah, it happened. The gun went off, and she's dead." Like, that's it. But the fucking 3.5 hours that you watch, she's like, "Abraham was threatening me. I was scared. I needed a
Hey,
gun."
look, I want to say one
and-
thing
and-
really quickly on the
Ugh.
family is that there's one
the
niece in
Tidges.
there's one niece in particular who is spotlighted, and she makes a comment early on of like other family members didn't want her to do this, blah blah blah. Basically, it's not the family that's backing her up. It's like these couple people here. The rest of the family is like, nope, we don't know her. Never heard of Yolanda. Don't know her. You know,
I'm
and
telling you,
do
these
blame
last
them?
these
No.
three that were
Cut
like,
her out of the pictures.
cringy.
If there was family photos, they're like, who's
Yep.
that? No clue.
it was
Seriously.
so cringy, man. You sit there and you're like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, look, it's The Secret. This is it." I'm like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Oh man, at school people would look at me weird," and it's like, they should. Like,
You know-
yeah, your Tia's fucking nuts. She killed Selena. What do you want?
You know what?
Like,
I do have
move.
one good takeaway from this, and I'm thinking to myself, man, there should really be a big Hollywood movie about Selena and about what happened to her. And I feel like that'd be the kind of movie that could really make some careers.
Kevin Garcia.
Wait,
Something
no
with you, man.
mames. No
Míjalo.
mames.
Regáñalo.
No mames.
Regáñalo. Tear them apart. First
I
of all,
love
in the
that.
beginning of the
No,
show, you
seriously,
like
but, like,
that.
does
Selena, I
this-
will say you wanna get a very big understanding about Selena personhood and just how complicated of a person that she was. I would say read Chris's book. Read Chris Perez's book,
Yeah.
To Selena with Love. It's not that she was a bad person. At no point does this man ever talk shit about this woman. This woman is the love of his life. But it really starts to come home to you within like her in a relationship with someone other than the family that is preserving her image, that she was a complex woman and a woman who was expressing independence and identity and was right at literally the pinnacle of her 20s, about to explore more of who she was as a person outside of her family and outside of the business. That it breaks my heart reading the book because you really feel for him. You understand what got taken from him. I would also suggest, again, you want to understand the breadth of what surrounds the Tejano culture and just overall that time
Can I ask-
period. I would
Can I ask?
read that
Because
book.
Wait, you would read what?
Oh, the
What's the
Jonik
book?
Patowski book, Como la Flor.
Okay.
But yeah, those two are definitely like they give you a good idea. And then the other thing is Anything for Selena's, a podcast, and all of the crazy shit that happened as she was getting famous, when she passed away, and I still have beef with Howard Stern. At me, bitch. Like, maybe next time don't talk shit about Mexicans and then throw out some like bullet sounds. Maybe don't.
Yeah.
And he did that when she passed away. And guess who on national television was fighting for her ass? Linda Ronstadt. Linda Ronstadt called them bitches out for that shit, and they're racist crap. So yeah, like there's a lot of beef that comes and the politique that comes with it. But the last episode is with of that podcast is with Chris Perez. This is many years after that book came out. And he talks about, he talks a little bit more about some of the things he didn't talk about in the book, and just, how much of a lively person that she was, but just how crazy that is when you live a life that is that fully free when you're in a certain type of lifestyle, and you know, it really becomes clear that, you know, they truly were a match for each other at the time, and we don't know what could have been, especially because it got taken. And so you see the remnants of an entire industry that, you know, just me personally, I say that the Hano music is still very much alive and well. You know, from the time of Selena, when there were only 5, maybe 6 females that were active, now you have 20 plus. You know, her impact is felt, maybe sometimes not in the ways that we all want in the Tejano music industry, but it is felt. And I would urge everybody, fuck that hoe. Do not watch this documentary. These guys did it for y'all. But I would
You
just
watch
say,
this, you don't have to.
yeah, they
Yeah,
watched it, so you don't have
definitely.
to. It is a bunch of bullshit. There's nothing new in it. You want, actually, if you want a Cliff Notes version of that, you can just buy the shitty book by Maria Elena, which is a journalist from Mexico who really like went hard on all of the shit that Yolanda said, and then almost got sued by the Quintanillas, and then tried to make her own show on Televisa. So like, trust me, they have been trying to commodify and just continue to get money off of her death for years now. And the Quintanillas have not been cool with it. If you're going to do anything,
100% what you're saying. Yeah, like you said, we watched it so you didn't have to. It's a conversation because obviously it's out there, but it's not worth your time. Nothing in there is gonna change your opinion. Nothing in there is going to justify what happened. And I think my
And
question that I had,
if it does change your opinion, please seek other sources as well. It is extremely one-sided.
definitely,
extremely,
100%,
like, there's no
100%.
way, that you're going to sit there and go, ah. And like I said, I don't know who in their right mind sold it on who that this was the right idea. But I'm going to tell you right now, if y'all are worried, if you guys are so worried that Yolanda's going to get out, write to the parole board. If you're that fucking worried, write to the parole board. They do take public comment, by the way. Just figure it out. But there is, you know, the community can
Yeah,
vouch that this bitch should just stay in jail. But the family is also on it. They have been on it. They have been on her ass every time she tries to come out of her little solitary
oh,
confinement, her little hole of solitary confinement. And so, you know, just live with the fact that, you know, if you're that passionate about it and you are that concerned, do something about it, in the sense of be active, write the parole board, figure out ways to do that. But otherwise, I'm going to be super honest with you, that woman is not getting out, and I think she's fully aware of it, so she's just trying to make money for commissary. So, you know,
yeah,
she got to
100%,
buy her cats somehow. I don't know.
definitely. One thing I wanted to touch on was Tejano. So Tejano music, you know, music, the genre itself, right? I only knew it growing up in LA because of Selena and Johnny
Mhm.
Canales, right? That came on TV, and that's the only time I ever heard that. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, like you said, the genre itself is still budding, it's still booming, right? But I guess when that occurred, they literally, even the media coaxed it as the death of Tejano music when that occurred. And now we have yourself, other performers, other singers that are musicians that are moving this along. What explain to me, or the people that don't know, what is Tejano music as opposed to regional or other type of Mexican derived music? What's the difference?
I mean, Tejano music, the big thing is that it is roots music created in the United States as a blend of Mexican regional and, you know, migrant sounds of polka and things that were easy to travel with. The way it started, there's always contention and debate because people go, oh well, it started with big band. It didn't. Big band was its own genre. Latinos entering big band, you know, that was its own thing. For, you know, the 60s and the 70s, a little bit in the 50s, but big band sound is completely separate because the roots of Tejano music is in conjunto, and the fact that it was stories that were told by migrants moving from town to town to town. So when we think of Mexican regional as a whole, Tejano is definitely a part of it. It's just its American cousin. It's, it's literally somebody who is related because it uses all of those sounds of Mexican regional, but it has so much of the US influence of roots music, of that storytelling that, was created through migrant work. So that's why when we think of Tejano music, and yeah, it's Tejano, it's because it was born in Texas, but it spans throughout migrant communities. So that is all of the Southwest and into the Midwest. And so you have Colorado, Chicago, Seattle, California, Oregon, all of these places where there's a lot of
So
farming.
it's not just Texas music.
Yes. Yeah, like a lot of the big issue is that it's called Tejano, which is the translated word for Texas. I like to tell people a lot of the times, make sure how you're using the word, because one word can mean a self-identifier. Another aspect of it is a music genre. So know how you're saying it. I think it was really funny because I had this conversation with somebody going, oh, do I call your music Tejana music? I said, no, let me explain to you. And it's just, when it comes to music, I am not like, oh my God, you need to like say it this way. I'm not super rigid
Are
about
you
that. I'm not a
because
purist.
I used to be that guy where like, hey, punk is this,
Mhm.
synth is this is this, and you grow, you learn that everything blends, everything comes from everywhere. There's no gatekeepers to Tejano, to country, right? I mean, it shouldn't
there
just be a
is.
white thing. Look at the
No, there
Beyonce thing,
is.
right? That
Oh,
was a
there
whole
There
is.
thing,
is. There's
right?
gatekeepers in every community.
Yeah.
It's just dependent on whether you give a fuck. And I don't.
Well, there you go. Knock them down, right? I mean, I brought it up because I
No,
wanted to
it's
talk
the
about
truth.
Beyonce with the country
Oh, yeah.
music, like
Oh, you know what? And this is the perfect segue to Dolly Parton, who 30 minutes ago, while we were in the midst of our podcastery, put out a statement in regards to Beyonce.
ooh. Now, would
Yeah.
Dolly be considered an authority in country music,
Yes,
everybody?
she
I think
would.
so.
She is considered the queen of country music, and we're going to keep it that way. Thank you.
Indeed.
I'm a big fan of Beyonce and very excited that she's done a country album. So congratulations on your Billboard Hot Country #1 single. Can't wait to hear the full album. Love, Dolly. Everywhere. She put that everywhere. She didn't do a press release. She just popped it into socials. The woman works on a fax. One of her poor interns or family members got a fax with that message out, said, I want it posted at this day on this time. I want it to be known to the world. Do not tell anyone. Just post it on my socials. Let them figure it out. I'm on my fax in my mountain. Peace, bitches. Bam, 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 bam. Bam, 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 bam. Yeah.
And you know what? As we were talking about Selena, and everybody keeps talking about like, and I'm gonna annoy somebody very personal by saying this. People keep saying, could Taylor be the next Beyonce? And all I could think of is, imagine the heights that Selena could have made. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that we have somebody like Beyonce here who is being recognized by somebody like Dolly. But when I think about all that could have been, I think about that. I'm like, man, so much.
Yes, but I mean, we have to be realistic. Selena wasn't going to go into country. Selena was very much R&B pop.
Yeah, but
And
it was
gonna
that pop R&B that I was curious about. So Tejano to pop, that's cool.
Yeah. And so like you have to think, a lot of people this is where I say a lot of history unfortunately is so sieved to one person sometimes that it is almost a detriment. The case can be made for, the fact that there was a lot of different people crossing over at the exact same time Selena was, or around the same time. We have Freddie Fender, Linda Ronstadt, Selena, like Flaco Jimenez, the Texas Tornadoes, Michael Salgado, who was crossing over from Norteño to Tejano. So that was like a huge jump for him. Like he gained, like he just went whoosh. Then we have, Emilio Navaira, the history on that, soon after Selena's death, he made a country record. It made number 12 on the top on the top, 100 or top whatever, the Billboard 100 of country albums, and it marked the top 50 or something like that, but it hit number 12. He sold that many units of a record in the 1990s. And so I think it was 94, 95 when he released that record. So like so much of that history though, because we only focus on one person's crossover into, R&B pop, which mind you, that record that she released, the song, I think it's Dreaming of You, was the one that hit the Hot Billboard 100, and so did the album. But there was so much happening. Like there was so much, like the Latin explosion was happening at the time, and then it gained full force with Ricky Martin and Jennifer Lopez many years later. So like there was a bit of a like push and pull, because we're dealing with a lot of just politic about the border, and a lot of politic about what is Latino, what is Mexican, and what can we accept. And so all of that to say that when we talk about the lines being blurred within music, it's been happening for ages. Nothing stays in a vacuum, because eventually it all starts sounding homogenous and the same, and it starts being difficult to enjoy. And that's why we all enjoy, like we're polyamorous, where we jam
like
to
that.
different stuff. I could be jamming to, to Meg the Stallion 1 minute, and then be like, si una vez dije que like, pulling some shit with Selena, and then go rata de dos patas, like with Paquita, and then going to Linda Ronstadt, Blue Bayou, or to Freddie Fender, Wasted Days, like that, or oh my God,
and I love that
Scotty
though, that
Doesn't
we're
Know.
there. Like,
I could end my day with Scotty Doesn't Know, and then just
some of my favorite like viral stuff or like TikTok stuff is when I see like the Black community discover a dope like country singer, and they're like, oh shit, like they dig it. Or like white people end up finding like Bad Brains for the first time, and they're like, oh shit, like I love that like introduction of
I don't know about the
music.
Bad Brains part, sir.
Love Bad Brains. You don't love Bad Brains, girl? We gotta have a conversation
know.
offline.
But here's
Love
the thing: is like I think
hardcore.
really white people are not tastemakers. People of color are, because we have taste and we know what seasoning is, and so because of that,
Bad Brains. Okay, hence the Bad Brains, definitely.
And so with that in mind, like, look, I just read you something that literally just happened, which is Dolly Parton saying, "Y'all need to shut up and just be cool with it." I say that Dolly has a secret that she isn't telling us on this Beyonce
we're gonna
record.
have a.
But I'm gonna shut up because I don't know shit.
That'd be dope.
but in the grand scheme of things, no, her saying that is, when we talk about the things that we as people of color have to do, and I say people of color because yes, it's Latinos, Mexicanos, Indigenous, Black, Native American, like all of us people of color, we have to be co-signed by somebody at some point for it to really click in some of these decision makers' heads that, okay, now we're being watched by another decision maker and we can't be fucking around. And, Dolly, we have to admit at this point, like Dolly Parton is the queen of country. She rarely ever speaks about anything. The woman very, very rarely ruffles too many feathers. And so for her to come out in support of Beyonce is her coming in support. And I know this feels like a large leap and a jump, but is a support for a lot of people of color. They are going to see that and be like, okay, this woman does stand with people of color in the genre of country. And that sounds insane to blanket statement it, but are we wrong? Why does she need to make a bigger overarching statement for a woman that doesn't make many?
But you know what? Because she did that, that's looked at as like, oh shit, like it's sad that that's the society we're in, right? Even in
the bar is really low. I'm gonna say she should have just
about writing, we talk about
said what she
creative,
felt,
whatever.
but the bar
There's
is
a
low.
table which we don't have. In whatever avenue we're in, right? There's a table which we don't have a table. We don't have a chair at. sadly. But when someone at that table acknowledges us, oh, suddenly we have a seat. You know what I mean? And it sucks that we within our own community can acknowledge and recognize, oh shit, man, this is amazing. This is great. And we can pump each other up. And it's sad that you said we have to fight tooth and nail to have a Dolly Parton come out of nowhere and say, yeah, this shit is fucking worth watching. Like let's give it its due. Because in my head, after what Jay-Z said at the Grammys, like and I've read some stuff online, and because I read everything about music, but people are saying, oh, if Beyonce makes a record, this is gonna be her record of the year, but
No,
is it
I don't
is
think
it
so. I
it's
think
not
this
gonna
is her
happen because it's
saying.
gonna
I
get
think
shut
it's her
down.
saying that she's going to retire. I think these next 3 records. I think the rollout for a lot of these records is her just expressing herself how
Beyonce?
she. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Beyonce will retire. I don't think that at this point in her life she should have to keep performing. Her discography, she owns all of it at this point. She owns a good percentage of the masters. She really doesn't have to do shit for anybody anymore. She's opening up new businesses. Of course, she is not at the level of money that she is at. I will speak as a musician myself. Tours cost a lot more money a lot of the times than they give back. They sometimes are things that cost more than they're worth. And so, yes, Beyonce has a lot of money, but is she going to keep touring every record for the rest of her life? Nah, I don't see that. I see this as being an extension of what she was exploring in Lemonade and the different music genres that we heard from her. This is not the first country song she's done. And I would like to say
No,
to
but
everybody that this is also not the first time that country artists have covered and done country versions of her song. Mickey Guyton and Reba McEntire did country versions of If I Were a Boy, the song that came out on Beyonce's record years ago. If anyone remembers that really wild fucking music video and just that, number
what I
one.
think is Beyonce's, and that's just not, maybe it's being vulgar about it, but it's Johnny Cash's middle finger to everybody. Like, hey, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm doing what I want. This
Yep.
is me, and this is it. Just to dropping the mic moment for her as well, like you said. That's what I think this is.
One of the best headlines I saw in the news was Beyonce reclaims country music. It wasn't Beyonce enters country music or no, reclaims is an important word.
That's true.
I'm talking about the history of music.
I will say that it's a bit, as a historian, it creates some problems
Fair enough.
because we then run into the issue of overshadowing the people that came before Beyonce. Linda Martell, Charlie Pride, some of these people that had to that were struggling, that were grinding, and that people didn't realize that the first woman to be on the Billboard, charts was Linda Martell, but that the industry was very different from the industry of now. The industry of then was one that actually segregated many of the times country music, and the music made by people who were people of color, Black, Tejano, in the sense of Mexican. Freddie Fender's most famous album was released as a Tejano record, not as a country record, but made the #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. So explain that one to me. Like country is segregated.
Right.
If you want to learn more about it, I would recommend listening to Cocaine and Rhinestones.
When I'm asking you this as a historian, when I say that I think reclaims is an important phrase, I'm not saying, like you said, ignoring the people that came before. I think the impetus here is what you were saying earlier, where Dolly Parton shouldn't have to come out to her defense. Like, that shouldn't be needed. And yet in today's country industry, there needs to be a reminder of, hey, there was something that came before and was there throughout. But they like to pretend that for the past 20 years it didn't exist. Not just that, but especially around 9/11. That's why I say the past 20 years.
Country music definitely took on a more nationalist tone, in the sense of, we're American, rawr. We drink Bud Light and we kick people in the ass and take my gun.
Freedom fries and all that shit.
Yeah, all that shit was very prevalent.
That's what I mean. because for the past 20 years, it's been a big, as somebody who's not involved in country or the music industry, it appears to me that there's been a big push to kind of ignore or minimize the idea of people of color in the country industry.
Oh yeah, but it's gone so far that like the moment that they took, and I say they take, and I mean it in more than one level. You know, the country music industry has made a point to take sounds from people of color, change them so that it fits their very bland version of what that is, and then sell it. But will you ever see a person of color with that same sound? Well, one, no, because it won't sound like ass. And number two, it won't sound like reaching for the bottom of the barrel, which means doing the bare minimum. And number three, because there is a very clear sense of who you are is not truly accepted in town many times. I have been very blessed, on the other hand, to, you know, walk tall and carry a big stick. And I don't really give a shit because I come from Brownsville. Why am I going to care what you think of me? Like, like,
know,
bro,
Brownie,
I'm in the most
what I take
southern
from what
tip of the
Kevin's
United States.
what I take from Kevin's statement is the fact that people tend to forget, like you said, right, where the culture came from. It's not a white culture thing. And I think that's where I take away from it, because when I look at history and I read things and I go back and I dig, right, because I just consume it. When you see how the cowboy way, quote unquote, came about, it wasn't just from white guys running around the
it wasn't at
U.S.
all.
northern states
It came
at
from the
all.
Mexicans.
Exactly. And I think that's where it said, like,
Mexicans, black cowboys, and indigenous cowboys. That's where it came from.
yeah, and that's what I think I take from that statement. What Kevin said is like it's not like, oh, she's coming in brand new, like, oh, we're taking it back. Like, let's acknowledge this shit, right? You know, like, it's not a white thing, and I think that's the overlying cloud above this, right? Like, and I grew up that way. I grew up in LA, inner city music and Latino music all day. I'm Salvadoreño, so merengue and cumbia is all I heard. But when I heard the CMT awards are on, change the fucking channel because it's not for me. You know what I mean? But at this point, you know, I'm glad that we're growing. The community is growing. The Tejano community is growing. I'm learning about it more and more, you know, and the Latinos and Black performers are expanding to where they're just breaking down barriers and those stupid gates that we talk about, right? When it comes to music, when it comes to comic books, to movies, to TV, whatever we want to do, we're breaking those barriers. And I'm just loving that this community is growing. And I think that, you know, people like you, Veronique, like Kevin Garcia, like you so gushed about the Kevin Garcias out there, because there's more than one, but this one that I have
We
in
all
this
have a
room.
Kevin in our life.
You know what? Hold on a second. I wanted to say something a minute ago when Veronique was talking about coming in with a big stick, and you're talking
Okay.
about growing. All I can think of is when I think about her career, I think about like a dragon just growing up out of somebody and becoming this great dragon, a hero for everyone to follow. And that's why I'm glad that if anybody's going to be
Veronique,
writing a book about that,
dragon.
that is you.
The dragon.
Well,
There she is,
I
the
think
dragon.
I think the biggest kind of takeaway, at least for me, that really wraps up, you know, having to have the cosign. I'm fully aware of it. A lot of us are, but the fact that that even happened is huge. It's huge for everyone. It's huge for people of color. Yeah, she aims it at Beyonce, but it is definitely something that is supposed to, when Dolly speaks, it is speaking with subtext, because the woman is not going to just outright say a bunch of shit. It's just not in her nature. She's built very differently in regards to how she deals with the media. But I think Taylor Crumpton wrote it best for Time magazine, when they, you know, and she is a music, pop culture, and politics writer. And this is the direct quote from her article about Beyonce coming into country music. And it gets me very emotional. So thankfully, I've read it more than once, so I don't get as emotional now. But I hope this moves you. The truth is that country music has never been white. Country music is Black. Country music is Mexican. Country music is indigenous. And I want to leave you guys with that in regards to country music and whether you see yourself in it. because that should really encompass. If you ever felt like there was a part of it that spoke to you and you felt bad about it, don't, because it was taken from sounds that remind you of your family, of your friends, of your gatherings, of, you know, our music. And so when I say our music, I talk about mine, which is Tejano, which is Mexican. It's the sounds of Mexico. You know, when it comes to, you know, Black people, it is their music. It is the, you know, Rosetta Tharpe and Linda Martell and Charlie Prides and the sounds that came from a Black community, from the rock and roll that was created and the roots music that was created from bluegrass and folk. All these things came from Black. I mean, my God, Zydeco, all of those sounds came from Black communities. And so, you know, each of us has a role to play in the overall community that is country. It's just now we're fighting for our place. And so if anyone ever tells you, why do you want a seat at a table where you're not wanted? I just say pull a Michael Jordan and just use that. You know, Michael Jordan did, if you guys have not seen the documentary, The Last Dance, you should. There's a lot of recommendations on this podcast of a lot of different things. So I'll make a list.
Hey, there's always good recommendations on this podcast. Everybody should listen to this podcast.
Always. Every day.
And The Last Dance is an amazing documentary. If you want to understand how to really train your brain to use negative like reactions to best fuel a more productive mind, just look at Michael Jordan. My God, the man went through it to get through it. And he really came out on the other side. I mean, look at him now. Like you really can't deny the sauce, man. There's nobody
can argue.
Like you really can't argue it. And so, you know, I hope I leave you with that in regards to country music, that a lot of us are here. A lot of us are fighting for a place to speak, to stay, to really make our own. And you are welcome, you know, with us, with people of color, with us, you know, here.
Definitely. I really want to just thank you, Veronique. I mean, we can talk for hours, like you said, and I'm opening the door for you. Please, anytime you want to come on and chat, please feel free. We didn't get into any geekdom and all your comic knowledge, which I know you love to flex.
We did get into geekdom. We got into music geekdom. We got into history.
No, but we didn't get into the stuff off camera because we were just so excited to start.
We're so excited.
Oh, that's behind the scenes.
That's for episode
behind
2.
the curtain.
Look, if you guys want me back, you guys just need to put in the comments of what did you think of this episode, that you actually liked it. That's what you need to put.
You need to
make sure that you want more.
Veronique come back. Question mark.
By the way, you guys, some big events that I will be at coming up really soon is
definitely.
BIPOC Fest in Austin. It will be the first week of March. I will be
BIPOC Pop?
Yes, BIPOC Pop.
Yes,
BIPOC Pop, yeah.
Yes, at the beginning of March. And then
7th, 8th, and 9th, by the way.
7th, thank you. 7th, 8th, and 9th of March. Just, you know what, just have my mouth move and then just have you all say
I'll dub you.
Well, the Primos will be there too. All of us will be there.
The Primos will be there too, Veronique. We can do it live. 7th, 8th, and 9th. There you go. Perfect.
I spoke with no teeth. Like, what the fuck was up with me? I was like, but the other thing is I will be at USC, University of Southern California, the sounds of the Rio Grande Valley, for a panel at USC, the University of Southern California, March the 22nd. So please make sure to head out. Then my book, 13 Origins Dragon Thrall, hits comic book stores March the 15th, I think. Because I don't understand how books work. So,
the Ides of March.
In the Ides of March.
That's, by the way, the same day that my Kickstarter ends, actually.
Yes. So go and support your creators, i.e. Kevin and myself. All of us are out here. And Freddie. Freddie disappeared, but he's here in spirit. And so please make sure to support everybody. And thank you guys so much. Thank you to all the primos. You guys have a new prima, La Loca, La Divina, Veronique Medrano. Gracias. Muchísimas
Veronique, no,
gracias.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. And of course, please check her out at Veronique956. And of course, check out Mr. Kevin Garcia _.com. And check out worldswarcomics.com as well. Campaign is still live, guys. Go
Yeah, the
out there.
Kickstarter, we're about 45% right now. So doing good. That's as of recording. And looking forward to that. Really want to make this happen. It's an indie book. We want to have more indie creators. Please support the arts. And what I think I keep telling people is like, if you can't financially support it right now, share it with somebody else who might.
Just put it out there, Primos. That's what we're all about, man. No matter where you're from, if you're from the deep south of Texas, the central of Texas, or all over the world, remember, we're all primos. Let's take care of each other. Let's support each other. And remember, country music is for everybody. Give it a shot.
Puro amor, puro besos, puro primos. What?